team that I may beat the drum for is Oregon State, and we'll get
There
to
we
them
go.
next. The Beavers went 10-3 last year. It was the first time since 2006 that they'd won double-digit games. They were 6-3 in conference. Listen, Jonathan Smith has done a great job up there. Former player who came back to Corvallis. He got their first four-star recruit since 2018, which was a big deal. And he and Brian Lindgren have got this offense moving in the right direction. Now they have a new quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei. A lot of questions around him. We'll talk about that in a minute. Trent Bray helped take the defense from dead last in 2018 to first in total defense in the Pac 12 last season. Defense was a big reason why Oregon State kept it close against USC. Now, they got blown out by Utah. I'll give you that. But then impressive wins over Oregon, impressive win over Florida in the bowl game where, Florida was just an absolute dumpster fire and Oregon came in and gave them the people's elbow, right? The team strength for this team, earlier we talked about a team that's going to run, or teams in the Pac 12 that are going to run the ball really well. Oregon State is going to be one of those teams.
Yes.
Damian Martinez, the Pac 12 freshman of the year from last season. He had 6 straight games of over 100 yards on the ground, and he averaged 6.1 a tote. It's pretty good, according to the numbers. And then you also have, a decent offensive line. They returned 4 or 5 starters. So DJU, he's not a quarterback that's going to spread it out on a play in, play out basis. They're going to need balance. They're going to need the tight ends that they have in Jermaine Terry II from Cal, Jake Overman. They're going to need them to be productive this year and set up a running game, which I think should be the staple of this Oregon State attack.
Yeah, it's going to be a good running team. I think really my only cause for pause here is going to be DJU, right? It's the fact that, man, he just has had so much up and down at Clemson. I don't necessarily know that the defense is going to be easier to play against in the Pac-12. And that would be kind of what you're hoping for is, I'm going out to the Pac-12, maybe defense is a little lighter, maybe the competition is a little lower, so I'll pass better. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I don't know that you can count on that if you're, really trying to beat the Oregon State drum. But I will say I think they're going to be a pretty good team. I think that they're going to push a lot of teams. I think that they're kind of the next step down in terms of teams. I don't think that they're on the same level as Oregon, as Washington, as Utah and USC. I don't think that they're up there in that first tier, either 1A or 1B, but I think they're solidly in the second tier of these teams, and I'd put them at the top of that tier by a pretty good margin. I think really my big concern is going to be, obviously they run the football really well. Can they keep the balance with DJU? I really just got to see it happen before I can believe in it. There's reasons to think that's fine, but you also have to think with DJU, he's been playing with some pretty elite talent at Clemson. They don't necessarily have the same guys. They have some good receivers. I'm not going to try to say they don't have anybody up there, that it's a barren wasteland in the receiver room, but it's not going to be the same level as Clemson has been recruiting. And I don't know, man. I think this is kind of where the breaking point is here, is just what can DJU do? If you're asking me, can he be good enough to just let the defense, keep it honest so they can run the football effectively? I could say, yeah, he could probably do that. If you're asking me for a true balanced offense, I don't know that he can give you that. He's better than what they've had, but I just don't know that he's going to be enough to overcome some really good quarterback play in the Pac-12 this year. If you look at their schedule, I think right now I have them losing to Utah, and then I have them losing the last 2 to Washington and Oregon. But I do have them going 9-3. And
yeah, that's a workable
that's a great
schedule.
season.
That is a workable schedule. Again, another shot at a 10-win season with a bowl game win. Yeah, I agree. I think Utah, Washington, and Oregon are head and shoulders the toughest games on the schedule. They avoid USC,
which is nice.
They avoid Arizona State for whatever that's worth. Utah on the Friday night at home. That's going to be a fun game. And then they get a bye week before or after UCLA and before their stretch run. I think they could build up a ton of momentum, compete with a Washington, compete with an Oregon. And I think this should be a very strong season for the Beavers. The wild card, of course, DJU.
schedule works out really nicely because the majority of their like away games are easy, right? They don't have to go like to Utah or to what they do go to Oregon end of the year, but that's an in-state rivalry, so you can make of that what it is. But if you look at their away schedule at Washington State, that can be tough. But at Cal, at Arizona, at Colorado, that is very manageable in terms of away schedule, and also at San Jose State, but that's out of conference. Very manageable away schedule, I think, helps them in conference. Being able to get a lot of those tougher games at home, I think, is a good thing. I think you'd much rather play UCLA at home, Utah at home, Washington at home. So getting a lot of those games at home, I think, will be good for them. I think that they can really start. If you look at their start, I think it's an easier start. So I think they can kind of, outside of that Utah game, really build some momentum. And hopefully, if you're an Oregon State fan, you're hoping that they can, make that next step and keep building on what they had last year.
Gracious, how about that?